What's going on? This is Edwin Vereen from WOBL, WDLW Sports, I-90 Sports, and the Sports Bros Podcast. Now you're listening to Tapped In with Tony.
Welcome back to another episode of Tapped In with Tony. I am your host, Tony Bogan. Tonight, joining me, our special guest, he's a Ohio high school football scout, author at Prep Redzone, Jared Luginbill. Jared, thank you for joining the show.
Thanks for having me, Tony.
Not a problem, man. See, you've done a lot of scouting work over in your neck of the woods and you're part of Ohio. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so cover the whole state with Prep Redzone, but my specific area more so is Southwest Ohio, so Dayton area, Cincinnati, over to Columbus is kind of the region that I'm looking at more in depth as far as feet on the ground sort of things, but always doing a lot of film, watching and that sort of thing. So. But yeah, that's kind of where things fall for me.
Gotcha. Have any teams in particular stood out to you this year in that area? I'm a Northeast Ohio guy who's going to be at States in Dayton, and I don't really know too much about Central or Southwest Ohio.
Sure. Yeah, it's been I guess not an ordinary year. This year, your normal schools outside of a Moeller haven't really kind of had the traction that they normally do. Lakota West, though they're still in the playoffs, started off really slow and actually didn't win the GMC this year for the first time in a long time. And a school like Princeton that hadn't won the GMC since the early 90s actually did win the GMC. But you have schools like St. X that had at least 4 or 5 losses on the season. Now they do play a really tough schedule, so that does play into that record. But so there weren't really a lot of teams that I would say are total standout teams, but Moeller and Lakota West have gotten better every week and are really making nice postseason runs, are still in it in the D1. Springfield, more in the Dayton area, still in it, has a ton of talent. They went through a part early on in the year where they didn't have their quarterback, also have a new starting quarterback this year. And so that always, makes things a little more interesting, and it just takes time for kids to adjust and to that starting quarterback position. But they have a lot of talent. Aaron Scott, who's headed to Ohio State next year, being the biggest name there. But Deshaun Martin is a kid on the outside who plays receiver, who's committed to Kent State, but I think it's a Power 5 level kid. So. A lot of talented teams, but maybe not any that are heads and heels, I guess, over what maybe they have traditionally been.
Gotcha. And tell us a little bit more about your background, Jared. Where are you from initially?
Yeah, so I'm actually from Northwest Ohio. So I'm from a small town called Pandora. Pandora Gilboa is the school system. So it would be a D7 school. Was a D7 school. I kind of have a heart for, small school kids and enjoy covering them too. But so from there, I went to Bluffton University, graduated from there with a degree in recreation management, but didn't play football there out of high school, just kind of, felt like it was time for me to move on from playing the sport. But I've always enjoyed scouting. I was kind of one of those freaks that, back in the 90s when the internet was just going, I enjoyed following recruiting. I have always enjoyed watching the NFL scouting combine and just assessing players from, kind of that lens. and what that means, carried out on the football field, as well as, putting together rosters and, what, kind of the measurables look like for each position at the next level and those sort of things. And so, been a big high school football fan for, since I was out of high school, really. So last 30 years, 25 years, I guess, however many that is. Just watching the game, and really in the last 10 years, I've really gotten closer into the actual scouting and worked for an online scouting service, and that was more software based. But after that, caught on with Prep Redzone, and really enjoy it. It gives me a chance to get out and see and build relationships with kids, and just try to kind of help them navigate through the process of being recruited or attempting to be recruited. And can't help every kid, but I try to help as many as I can. And we're a scouting based service, so we're not asking kids for money or anything like that. And so that's kind of where I really like what I do, because I there's too many scams out there taking advantage of young people that have dreams. So I feel like you need to have a place that's safe for the kids to come in and ask questions and not feel like they might get taken advantage of.
Absolutely. And also there's like a lot of showcases that happen over the summer that
Hmm.
really help these kids stand out,
Yeah.
especially with no spring football in Ohio.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. It's spring football it's a big thing, and I was glad to see the OHSAA move things up a little bit into May, because people don't really, what they don't understand about spring football is not just that the teams are able to get out and practice together, but it's a chance for colleges to come and evaluate those players in a real football setting, not just in shorts and a t-shirt. And so, pushing that date up and pushing 7-on-7 up, still does give those college coaches a chance to come out and see kids, albeit as if it is in shorts and a t-shirt, but actually still get to see them, you know, working on football drills, football type things, not just lifting weights and doing dot drills and things like that. So, really big in my opinion. I'd still like to push it even further. I'd like to get it up to the very 1st of May to kind of coincide with the evaluation period that college coaches have, to allow them to be able to maximize the time of seeing Ohio kids. But obviously, this is better than what it was, and so hopefully, Ohio can continue to keep progressing in that, because the kids work hard. They deserve the opportunity to be seen and have that hard work pay off.
Yeah, and notice that some of the local schools would have college type of where colleges will come up and evaluate some of the kids
Hmm.
that they're looking for. Because that's also a huge step.
Right, right. And they've always been able to do it to an extent, but it's always been in a setting of lifting weights, of watching them do conditioning stuff. It's never been actual football, throwing, passing, catching, actual, line drills and line offensive linemen facing defensive linemen. Even though there's no pads on, it still projects more than just laying down on a bench press bench and bench pressing. It's actual football. So, so yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, I was at a Kent State. I saw that Kent State did a summer camp for, you wouldn't believe the amount of coaches and the amount of kids that were there. I believe 200 some odd kids from all over the Midwest, and got coaches from Penn, Rutgers, Army, the
Hmm.
MAC. So
Hmm.
many. It just shows how outside of Texas, I would say Ohio is the second biggest football crazy state.
It's really big. I mean, Per capita, I think we're right there with the top talent in the country. And people want to compare us to Florida and to Texas and to California, and those are all great football states. But what they don't realize is that all three of those states are around three times the population of a state like Ohio. And so that does bear out into more kids. But when you look at the quality and the talent of Ohio, I think we're right there with anybody. And so, I agree. I think, with it being the birthplace of football, and the coaching tree all the way back to Paul Brown and coaches like that, I think is innate in our, just in the tradition of Ohio, and has made it kind of to what it is. And so, I don't take that for granted. I think we have a lot of great football coaching and a lot of great football history and a lot of great football talent here in Ohio.
I agree 100%. A lot of there are some people who graduated and came back to be coaches in the state. Some
Mhm.
have gone on to play professionally, albeit either in the NFL or elsewhere. I
Mhm.
would have, what would you say that makes Ohio, what separates Ohio from all the other states when it comes to the passion, the talent, and this, that, and the third, and all the other elements?
I just think honestly, I think it's part of who we are. I mean, I think it's just been something, like I said, it's kind of just been in Ohio's blood, ever since the beginning. And it's Ohio's a very blue collar type of state where it's, you get down to work, and brass tacks and all that stuff. And it's a sport that uh, requires sacrifice. It requires hard work, camaraderie. I just think it's a very Midwest, very Ohio type of sport, and it kind of, the characteristics that make it great, I think, are kind of what Ohio embodies. So, I think in just that competition, you have a school like Ohio State and a rivalry with Michigan that's been what it has all those years. You have a professional teams like the Bengals and the Browns that have great histories, traditions with, like I said, coaches Paul Brown. Um, more recently, I guess Bill Belichick for the Browns. But teams that, players, Jim Brown, that are Hall of Fame players. So I just think it's kind of ingrained in our community. You have communities like Massillon where, I don't know if they still do it, but at one point, every baby that was born in the city got a football in its crib. Kind of, Ohio's kind of football, and kind of eat, breathes, and sleeps it, and sort of thing. And so I guess that would be my answer.
Gotcha. And that really showed when they had the showcase in August this year. Yeah, some of the top talent in Ohio going against some of the top schools in the nation. Massillon went up against Valdosta, Georgia, one of the top winningest programs in the nation. St. Ed's went against Center Grove, one of the top programs in Indiana. Glenville against Frederick Douglass, top program in Virginia. And Hoban went against Kentucky. So the fact is that Northeast Ohio was able to complete a clean sweep without spring football against some of the top programs in the nation. Shows that Ohio high school football is for real.
Right. And I think part of the thing that we can't forget, as well, as though we don't have spring football, that is part of the projection. When college coaches are looking at Ohio kids, they understand that they don't get all of those reps in the spring that your Florida schools, your Georgia, Texas, California schools get. So that is part of the evaluation process, and an understanding within that. But it's the exposure part that really hurts the most, because while you can judge what a player or project what a player can be, if you don't see them or don't know about them, then you're behind the eight ball as far as the player goes. So, but yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, you know, the aside from, really, if you look at it out of state wise, Ohio has beat pretty much most every team out of state they played, with the exception of Glenville losing to IMG, which isn't really, I guess I wouldn't call it equal ground with, the recruiting that IMG can do and the money that they have to pour into their players. So the fact that they only lost, I want to say 28-7 or something in that neighborhood is, to me, pretty amazing, because the resources that Glenville has versus IMG, yet the talent they can put out on the field is really impressive.
Absolutely. And how big of an impact would you have to say, in your opinion, that COVID has had, especially with seasons being affected or shortened or outright canceled, when it comes to recruiting?
Yeah, it's been huge. First off, from the player development aspect, those players lost a spring and a summer of development, of really being able to get out and better themselves as players. But beyond that, the restrictions that were, forced as far as the laws of the NCAA go for recruiting, and not being able to have kids come on campus was huge. I mean, that's a point of contact, first point of contact, excuse me, that a lot of kids have with starting to build those relationships with coaches, is on game day visits, is on visits, where a school might bring 10 players out to a college, and they get shown around. The coaches get to shake the kids' hands, size them up, start to kind of get a feel for them. Well, when you don't get on campus, that doesn't happen. When they can't come visit you, that doesn't happen. So really, what you had was a culture that was really uh, became based on film. And while film is great, film is, to me, the ultimate, the eye in the sky doesn't lie sort of thing. But um, you don't get a chance to find their measurables. You know, Unfortunately, kids on Twitter, might say I'm 6'2" and they're really 5'11". You can't tell that off a huddle video. So um, excuse me, when you're talking about college coaches that are looking to invest, $150,000 scholarship on a kid and bet their own job on a kid, they want to be able to know that that kid is who they say they are, and whatnot. And so I think kind of where things went with that, where it skewed a lot of things, is one, for the video, and two, for programs that have a lot of connections, for programs, coaches that had established connections and a trust, both between the high school and the college coaches, of, this is what this kid is and I can believe it, sort of thing. And so, if I'm a high school coach, and I have a bond, or a trust built with a coach at Ashland University, and I have a kid who I know that can play D2 level, and I say, he's 6 foot, he's 170 pounds, and I can kind of vouch for him, then that, it goes that extra level when there's that point of contact is missing between the player and the coach. So it really made things kind of, um, I don't want to say up in the air, but it really clouded things. And so what you also had then is, after that, because you couldn't have those kids on, not being necessarily sure what they were, you also, on the backside of that, had all of the kids in college at the time get a year of COVID. So now you have fifth year seniors that are taking scholarships that would have traditionally gone to a high school senior. And so that not only happened for the first year, but every college athlete got that COVID year, whether they were a senior, junior, sophomore, freshman. So that not only affected for 1 year, it's going to affect it for 4 years, all 4 years that those athletes were in. And I'm not trying to disparage the college athletes. I think they deserved their shot too, but um, I would have liked to seen some ground be made up for the high school kids along with that.
Absolutely. Because I know like kids will either they'll either A, look at an 18-year-old, or they'll maybe look at a 22, 23-year-old who's in his fifth year and maybe sixth year if they had a medical redshirt, or even seventh year in some cases,
Mm-hmm.
if they're able to contribute to the program, which means unfortunately a lot of those 18-year-old, 19-year-old kids who are freshmen may not get a chance that a sixth year or seventh year player will get.
Not the 1 year transfer free eligibility rule, and so I again that's something that ultimately I'm kind of for, but because coaches can kind of move freely as they want to, um, so I think it's only fair for the kids to be able to do that one time, but it does have an effect on those high school scholarships that are available, and where even maybe five years ago, you would have Power Five teams handing out 20 to 20, even 25 scholarships in a season. Now they might only hold 13 to 15 scholarships in a year for high school seniors, and so and then the rest of those are filled by transfers or players given scholarship off of walk-ons or that sort of thing. Um, so it definitely has had effect, and it's been a trickle down effect. People might say, well, only so many are going to play Division One as it is. So what that does is the less scholarships there are for the Division Power Five. Some of those kids that would have went Power Five are going to go to Group of Five, and some of those Group of Five are going to get shoved down to FCS schools or Division Two schools, and so you kind of see a trickle down effect of the displacement of kids that would have went that don't any longer. But then on the backside of that, the transfer portals change things. You see D2 kids all the time now, transferring up to Division One schools, if not Power Five schools. So that's what I try to tell kids, that if you're good enough, they're going to find you. If you don't get that D1 scholar you dreamed of, go to Division Two and prove that you're that guy. So and they will find you. So it's a big game. There's a lot of dynamics, but it's fun to follow.
And Division Two, Division Three football isn't the death sentence a lot of people make it out to be. There are some really great D2 and D3 programs, especially in the state of Ohio. Mount Union, John Carroll, Baldwin Wallace, where for instance, if I was an athlete, if I got the chance to start at a D2 or D3 and it gives me an opportunity to work my way up, I'll do it. I'll start at a D3, or maybe I enjoy playing there so much that I decide to go all 4 years there. You never know.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You I try to tell kids, you're when you're surveying the high school athletes that are available to play in college, you're only out of the total, you're only looking at about 7% that are going to move on and play at that next level, and that's D1 all the way. The high, that's Alabama and Ohio State, all the way down to to the very bottom of D3. There are kids that are going to be all state athletes in high school that are going to play D3 college football. It's not, as you said, a death sentence. It's not a knock to your ability. That's still the highest level of football. It's not Ohio State. It's really high competitive. In even what I tell kids too is, a lot of times, go to a D2 game, see how fast it is, see how physical it is. It's a different type of game than what high school is. And if you think you're all that and you're too good for that, then you're probably got something, mixed up or something wrong, because it's a high level of football, and you can learn, progress as a player, and like you said, maybe it's working your way up, or maybe you find a spot at a school you really like that fits you academically and athletically, and socially, and this is about long term. There aren't very many players that are going to play at Ohio State. There aren't very many players that are going to play in the NFL. If you can go and you can get college paid for, or even partially paid for, and get a great education and better yourself, not just as an athlete, but as a person, and take out less debt carrying out into the future, that's huge. That's huge. It shouldn't be looked down upon, because it's gives you an advantage that many other people would kill to have, honestly. So yeah, there's a lot of dynamics, like I said, but ultimately it's just about being the best version of them that they can be, and finding the best fit for them.
Absolutely. And there are players that play at the D3 level that will. Every now and then you'll get a D2 or D3 player that'll make it to the NFL, even if whether they're drafted late or undrafted, or some even go into coaching. Some will go.
Absolutely. I think John Carroll had a kid that just graduated that caught on with the Titans, made their 53 man out of camp. I'm pretty sure he was undrafted. So
Went to BW. His name's
Peter, okay, you're right. Yes, yes. But yeah, I mean, it's in Division II more and more. These billion-dollar entities that are NFL teams have a lot of money, and they have really good scouts. If you are good enough, they're going to find you. And really, what it comes down to is being elite. Some of that is hard work, some of that's God-given ability, but you know, if you're good enough and you're willing to put yourself on the line to be the best that you can be, and you're good enough to play at that level, they're going to find you.
Absolutely. And maybe even if you don't play in the NFL, there's the CFL, USFL. There are people that play professionally overseas: Spain, France, England, you name it.
And you have the USFL and the XFL, which have now merged, that I really think is going to kind of become the feeder system outside of college football for professional football. I'm excited about that. I think the quarterback position is obviously the most crucial position to the game. The ability to develop those players at those positions, because a lot of times the problem you see is a rookie comes in, maybe they're a mid to late round draft pick or an undrafted, and they, even if they catch on with a team, they're either on the practice squad, or they're the third string, so they're never seeing practice reps. If they are, it's on a scout team. They're not being developed, and so if you can go to a CFL or a USFL or XFL, I don't know what it's going to be called, but and develop, improve your worth again. I think it's another route. The Browns have a wide receiver named Austin Watkins who cut his teeth in the USFL, and parlayed it into a camp tryout, and ended up on their practice squad and just got caught up to their 53-man roster. So, it's all about perseverance. It's all about sacrifice and putting yourself out there. And, if you're good enough, they'll find you. And, if not, you did everything you could to try to get to that level.
Exactly. And what would you say is the best game that you've covered? Like, I know you cover games with your work at Prep Redzone. What would you say is the best game you've covered in your time there? If you had to pick maybe one or two.
Wow. I guess one I'm thinking of was 2 years ago at the state championships. Youngstown Ursuline was taking on Clinton Massey. Youngstown Ursuline got out to a 24-point I want to say 21 or 24-point lead. Clinton Massey was a run dominant team. They don't really even throw the ball, maybe 5 times in a game, if that. And so a lot of times what you see is when a team gets way out ahead, the other team feels a pressure to throw the ball. And Clinton Massey did the opposite. They ran the ball and they did it really well and actually came down and took the lead in the final minute or two of the game and won. And actually went ahead on a 2-point conversion. They had seized the momentum of the game, and like I said, it might have been under a minute. The coach said, we have a chance to tie it, or we have a chance to go ahead. And he said he asked his seniors what they wanted to do, but I think kind of in the back of his head, he knew what he was going to do anyway. But they went for it and they got it, and it was a pretty amazing victory. Ursuline had a really good team. All credit to them too, because they played a whale of a game. But off the top of my head, that's probably the first one I would say. I've seen a lot of back and forth games that are just kind of, really good games. But I saw Lakota West and Moeller a few years back had a really nice game where it's just hard hitting and back and forth. And, just one of those games where just you feel the hits, on the sidelines. And, those are kind of the games that, I enjoy and I think about more than maybe the score itself, because, to me, a lot of football is that feel. It's the feel, the hitting. It's the crowd. It's the atmosphere. Obviously the score is important. You play to win the game, but a lot of times I remember those sort of things, those feelings, as much as I remember, so and so won or beat so and so by 3 points, and it was a close game, sort of thing. So. Again, a lot of times I'm looking at it from a lens of scouting, so I'm not focusing as much on the, this team scored first, this team scored second, that sort of, progression of the game. I'm kind of looking more at the players and that sort of thing. So it's kind of a cop-out answer, but kind of the way I guess I approach things.
No, that's a great answer, honestly. It's different from my perspective. I usually see who scores first, who makes that dynamic play, the roar of the crowd, the excitement when the kids win at the end, and even sometimes the heartbreak when some of them lose. Because with football, it's for some, they're putting on their pads for the last time ever in front of their community. Baseball, softball, golf, you can play into your 50s. But football, unless you're lucky enough to play at the pro level, some will be taking off their pads for the last time.
Absolutely. And I think that's kind of what you see in the playoffs too, that makes it real, is, seeing the kids and that community pride, putting on that jersey with their school name on it, and just what that means at this level where, NIL is not really a thing at this point yet. And it is more about community pride and, and school pride. And so, that's definitely a driver for me, as well as just seeing those kids playing for the reasons that they play, and trying to make their community proud and go as far as they can go.
Absolutely. And I noticed you said you did scouting for Prep Redzone. Tell me a little bit more about that website.
Yeah, so Prep Redzone, what we do is we are a Division I NCAA approved scouting service. And so one of the things is kind of a misconception, or not understood maybe that well, is the difference between a scouting service and a recruiting service. A scouting service is going to look to market themselves to universities and college coaches that are looking to find players to fill their rosters with, whereas a recruiting service is going out on behalf of the kid and the kid is paying the recruiting service to market them basically to the universities. And so we scout, we go out and scout. We're always trying to find more talent to fill our database with, get the information in there. We do rankings. I try to tell kids not to get too into that. The importance is getting your name on the list. It's not as much where you're on the list. You want the college coaches to see your name, and if you're on the list, they're more likely to see your name. And so what we do is we have articles that we, along with the rankings, along with the database that the coaches can subscribe to and see. We write articles that basically have evaluations of the players, kind of what they do well, what in some instances maybe they need to work on, and also trying to get that information out through that method as well. And so we're just trying to get kids information, get them exposure. We do have a paywall to, we ask for money to subscribe, so there is a monthly or yearly fee depending upon how you do it, that helps us pay the bills of being able to do what we do. But from a scouting perspective itself, any kid can go on just like 24, well, not like 24/7. Any kid can go on our site and they can make their own profile for free. It doesn't cost them a penny, and that they can put all of their contact information, academic information. They can link their highlights or YouTube or whatever highlights that they use, and get all of that information in one spot. And that way, they can direct coaches to that. When we write about them, it automatically links their profile to that article. So when you go on to their profile, any article we've written about that player is going to show up there. It's just kind of a one stop scouting, site. And we started out as Prep Network, or Prep Sports Network. Prep Hoops Ohio has been around for a while. Right before COVID, the year before COVID, they got the idea that they wanted to get into the football business, and so since then, since we started, we're now in 36 different states around the country, with sites. And so we've grown by leaps and bounds, but I feel like we're still some of the best scouting info out there. I have lots of D1 and Power 5 coaches that follow me, that I talk to on Twitter, that I can text and that sort of thing. And so it's mainly just a vehicle to get kids' names out there, and try to advance them as much as possible. And hopefully they enjoy what we write about them, and it can bring a smile to their face, because like you said, there will be a day where they put their pads on for the last time, and then what they'll have is the memories. And so hopefully we can play into that a little bit as well.
Awesome. And two more questions before we wrap up. One, where are you looking forward to the most with the state championships in just a couple weeks? And two, where can people find this work at?
Yeah, so with the state championship game, for me, it's all about the atmosphere. I love seeing the crowds rally behind their kids. Just kind of that, that you see the younger kids, that the third and fourth graders that have a big brother on the team, or have a cousin that's on the team, and how they look up to those players that have made this great accomplishment of getting all the way to the state finals. And it's just fun. There's so many smiles. It brings a lot of joy. And yeah, one team's going to win and one team's going to lose, but that experience of being able to go all the way to the end is priceless, and not a lot get to experience it. And so it's fun to see the kids, the parents, and the communities get to experience that all on a weekend of 7 games, 14 teams. There's going to be talented teams. No matter the division. So, I'm not worried about predicting who those teams are going to be, because I know no matter who it is, they're going to be good and they're going to be worthy of being there. And so, as far as our website, prepredzone.com, if you put in Prep Redzone Ohio into any of your search engines, Google, Yahoo, whatever. I don't know if Yahoo's still a thing, but you can find us. There's 3 of us main scouts right now that are doing the articles. Sorry, 4. We have 4 that are kind of represent Northeast Ohio, Northwest Ohio, Southwest Ohio, and Central Ohio. So it's a good mix, and we try to get as many kids as exposure as we can. And as always, on Twitter at Jared Luginbill. You think you should be ranked? You think you should be, noticed? DM me. I'm always in my DMs. I'll check out your stuff. I'd be happy to take a look and give you some feedback if that's what you're looking for too. So, I really appreciate the shout out.
And thank you for coming on to Tapped In with Tony, Jared. We love having you, and you can check this out on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, or you can go to YouTube and follow the YouTube page at Tapped In, no apostrophe, Tap, TAPD, in with Tony. Thank you all for tuning in, and catch you guys later.